Yeah, here we are again. Streaming on Twitch, people. Uh yeah, I'm getting my things together for 213 beta 3 release. Consider it one step closer to the final release. I think we're gonna have that really soon. This is just another slew of little patches and fixes for stuff, and I'm gonna be working on that over night and tomorrow and doing all the builds. I actually have a script that will build all the example configs and they get deployed the Marlin builds, so that'll be exciting. Hold on, switch scenes. Hold on. I think you can hear me, right? How's everybody doing? I gotta open up the things. Let's see. Do I even have docs? What are these things? Fuck. There you go. Um, Gosh darn it. That's how we talk here in New England. In the New England part of Austin, Texas. Let's see. Show recordings, show settings, blah blah blah. I used to have this thing where it was a view of the stream info, and I forget where it is, or this is a new version of OBS, so it's my first time using it. I'm just going to bore you with this for a little while I work out other things. Oh, I've also got this. Boop. Coming soon. I'm working on something cool. This Prusa i3 was my first printer, my first introduction to Marlin and stuff. So I'm doing a little refresh on it. I'm making a little Bowden for it, and then I'm also going to do a direct drive on it eventually, and just try and make it swappable, make it easy to swap. And then I'll do some multicolor stuff like multi-nozzle. Actually, have a spare nozzle. These are E3D V5, I think. They're supposed to be the same size as V6, but I have this Titan. It might be a knockoff, and it seems to not fit very well. I have it banged in there with a hammer. So I don't know, but I just got this thing to the point of some. Well, I got some pretty good things going. Let me show you the side. Hold on. Trying not to knock things over with my camera here. All right, let's flip this around. A little bit of a mess because I'm using these old wires that I have from another project, and I haven't done any wire management on it yet. There you go. Hey, check it out. Let's bring down the camera to take a closer look. Shall we? Tripods are good for it. Oh, magically, slowly find our way down, down, down to this board. And it's an SKR, Big Tree Tech SKR Mini E3, which is meant to be and used as a replacement for an Ender 3. And I like these boards. They're great little form factor. They're small and compact. And I actually have also, this is a donation. So thank you, Big Tree Tech, for providing this board. It's great. Um, so far, it's got 2209 Trinamic steppers on it, and those are silent, and they also provide sensorless homing, so you don't need any end stops. And I'm kind of cool. I'm kind of thrilled about that. I was a little worried that my banging into crappy PLA parts would, cause things to break, but actually, it's very gentle. The homing speed, if you keep to a modest homing speed, it works. But yeah, you can see there's my electronics board. You've seen these before. If you're into 3D printing, you know how it is. So yeah, this one is really cool. It's been a real boon for me to use this one because it's just, plug and play. Also, it takes the standard like stock display, Creality style single cable stock display, which provides a beeper. And if you want, you can wire up more. You can wire up more things to these. But yeah, it's your good old graphical display. These are I highly recommend using these on, like, if you have any printer that's got like a one of those serial displays with a weird touch interface, like, just chuck it in the bin, or stick it aside and set it aside and plan to use it for a different project or something. The UIs on those are terrible. All they do is send G code to your printer. It's very limited. They're not expandable very easily. And then they just give you what they give you, and you don't get any. It's a crappy experience, I feel. And generally speaking, like they just usually look pretty ugly, and they have branding on them that takes off up most of the screen in some cases. Um, I have an Ender 5, I think it's an S1, and I've been meaning to really rework that one. I wanted to get the build for it with the regular screen solid before I made my conversion, because that's me. Of course, it's been months or whatever since I planned on that, but there you are. Face. So what else are we doing? Oh, well, as long as we're here, let's see what I've got set up for my code situation. Make sure all my close all these windows. I've got so many windows open here. Let's see. Safari's got a lot of mostly. I wonder if I can join all these tabs together. How many windows do I have open? Many. 3, 10 tabs each or whatever. But let's see. Usually I'll be in code face situation. Hey, here we are. Code. So yeah, I've been working on lately, like yesterday, or I think it was yesterday. Jeez, you go by so fast. Might have been the day before, but I was working on the old printer here, and I realized there's no way to like edit the homing speed. Well, there was homing speed, not the homing speed, the homing current, like the current to the trinamic steppers was not editable. And also there's no G code to like set that. And I was like, well, we have it as a setting, and it's the kind of thing which you want to be able to tune while you're setting up your printer. So I implemented that, and it wasn't too hard. So that was put in just today, the day before. Go check it out. That pull request is a really great example of how to just implement something like that. A new feature that allows you to edit something, that takes something that was a fixed value and gives you the option to make it editable. That's what I prefer with these things with Marlin, is we got to keep the code from ballooning. So every time there's some new feature, it's always off by default. But having this be editable, I'm going to turn it on. Like, it should really be turned on now that it's there. Go through all the configs where it could be turned on and turn it on, because if you're not using all the flash space on your board to put the code on there, then you're not taking full advantage of everything that could be on there. And we keep adding new, better features that most printers should have, which is great. I think that we've got like non-linear extrusion now, which is pretty cool. So you can kind of like, you know, we already had a pressure advance, which is good. But nonlinear extrusion uh, deals with the fact that you have slippage, at higher speeds, or that your gear ratio is like weird. And that's not unusual. It's basically got to do with the amount of contact that the gear makes with your filament, and at certain speeds, like, it'll make pretty good contact as it goes, but you know that if they're in any way like textured, then there's going to be times when there's touching and times when they're not, and it can always slip in those in between points if there's not enough pressure and not enough feed. That's why those bond techs are so good. They feed from both sides. They've been known to cause weird waviness in the past, but I think they've sorted that out. There was a big issue about that with Prusa's for a while. But yeah, so this is a case of hello, in case you're new. This is a case of RepRap still living, people, because I am not like seeing us any slowdown in the activity on the Marlin. Issue queue and stuff. People are still anxious to keep using it, and on their printers, they're not like necessarily looking to double up their hardware with a Raspberry Pi. Although I definitely, we're going to be, as I've been uh, cheerleading for a while now. I know this year we're going to be really pushing to get a tighter integration of Octoprint with Marlin, so that when you do pair an Raspberry Pi with your whatever board you happen to have that's still running Marlin, you can decide to take that away and move it to another printer. You don't have to worry about keeping it tethered. Is nice, but it'll also give you that experience where if you want to do things, upgrade your firmware, you'll have a UI in the host for finding the latest firmware, downloading it, building it if necessary. Hopefully not, but you never know. And I've got all the UI built out. Well, I'll show you what I've got in Visual Studio Code. So if you've been on this channel before, I spent a lot of time coding. And one of the things I've been coding a lot lately is, I don't know if the stream chat, by the way, is actually working. You let me know. Um, Actually, I can go to the channel and try it myself. I was planning to stay on for a boot an hour here and just go over a few things that are going into the latest release. Maybe give you a little quick tour of like the some of the new options and the configs. And I think over the next little while, if I'm less shy, which I'm feeling less shy lately, so I'll get out there and one of my neighbors is really cool. Is moving, and I'm really sad about it. And it's gonna just be me and you having these great conversations for a while, I think. So I'm relying on you to come along on the ride, talk about all these cool things that are happening. Hopefully we'll stay in touch, but yeah, I'm gonna miss her a lot. But one of the people I could really relate to her, and we're all yes, learning and studying and trying to understand reality, how it works. Really like. And anyway, but if you've been on here before, you know that I'm working on tools to help make this understandable. See that segue there? And one of the things I discovered recently was just how much better the experience of setting up extension host debugging, which you can see here in the title. There's extension development host, Marlin firmware. Well, the trick is like in order to do that, all I have to do is open it up in extension like developer mode or whatever, using a command line uh, thing, which opens up VS Code with Marlin open. And then what I do is I open up auto build Marlin plugin extension, which is where the development host has been told to like look at the folder that it's in. And so when I then load that up, I have all its code. Here's oh wait, I'm not looking at the right thing. This is go away. This is the one. Oop, these files. So yeah, good old auto build. This is the auto build files. And when I want to do debugging, I can launch the extension, boop, and it automatically opens up this window. And to the Marlin firmware source code, at which point I can then, open up this little panel and go to the ABM panel or open up one of these. And these are the buttons I recently added, which is the whole reason we came here in the first place. I wanted to show you. So I added edit buttons to more conveniently get to these editors that are harder usually to find. Normally, if you want to open them, either I have to make it the default, which I didn't necessarily want to do, like when you open one of these files. I'd rather it was the text when you open it. But if you want, you can right click and say open with, and it'll come up in text editor or config editor, so you have your choice of which one you want to use. And if you choose the config editor, this is the UI you get. And I recently added a little left navigation here for you, make it more easy to find your LCD settings. I've been really working on a lot of the code, trying to get it to better parse the configurations and better handle situations like, if you switch, oh, I made the word counts uh, capitalized. That's funny. But I gotta remember not to do that. But yeah, so as you can see, like each of these is like, it's kind of hard to find them. But if you go searching, you know which display you have. I have an MKS something something. It'll bring these all up. So yeah, this UI makes it easier. You can hide all the comments if you don't, or here there. Hide the comments if you don't want to look at those. Makes it a little bit here, I guess. Uh, and that just, most of it is just what the heck is this? How does it work? What are the units? And then you can also hide the things you don't actually have enabled, which makes it easier to find just your option. You just want to tweak them without adding or enabling new things. It'll just show you the ones you have enabled. And at that point, you can be like, well, I like my bed temp stuff, but what do I not have enabled? Oh, I don't have PID temp bed, so I should probably turn that on. So like typically you should. And then, oh, I have a peltier bed. I have bed annealing G code. So like all these things can, tweak. But if you have this, you won't see them because you're just seeing what you have enabled. So you have to remember to, I may have to like change the color of the background or put a like border around it to make it more clear that just the things you have enabled. But anyway, UI. So that's kind of helpful. And there's so many options, and we're always adding more. And really, it's not escapable that we have to go through some kind of, pre-build configuration because you want to get as small as you can to fit on your board. And there is extra space. You can, immediately know, oh, I can turn on 7 more things. If we had like, I don't know what other kind of way we could do it. You could enable everything as they do in like say RepRap firmware. You can just run a G code and suddenly you're a Delta, even though your hardware is not a Delta. Maybe you want to do that. You can just take the same board you had and you don't have to reflash it. Although you probably will want to anyway because you periodically update the firmware. So you got to at some point know how to reflash your board. It's not like you can escape with I think I haven't used. I'll be honest, I haven't used Clipper. I need to look at that experience. I know that it's from what I've seen, it's like there's a little bit of command line, which is really cool, and then it uses cool terminal tricks to make nice looking menus and buttons, and you can probably even click on them now and use arrows to move around and things. So I'm sure it's very nice. And in general, like that kind of interface is cool. Um, our stuff is like, well, since we're limited to this, like you at some point you have to do this build experience or pick up someone else's build experience or whatever. It seemed like a really good idea to just have it right in the same environment where you're doing the build. And the fact that VS Code is like an editor, IDE slash builder slash everything, like hosts for all the stuff, and we can just bring this in and then tell the tool directly inside the same program. I mean, it's very nice. There's been a lot of kind of complaints about these Electron apps or VS Code being bloated and slow or whatever. But from our point of view, the convenience of having this amazing ability to just make HTML forms and use all the same tools we would use in any other situation. And then, as I was mentioning with the integration of Octoprint, I can take this very UI that I built here, all the JavaScript and everything. It's not like it has deep ties to the back end of VS Code, except for like, it's sending messages. It's just sending messages. So I can take those same message sending things that are happening in this UI and I can apply them to some other backend inside of Octoprint, send those messages through to a little backend thing, and then it handles like modifying the controls. Um, the way this currently works is you do have to like if you've say you enable switching toolhead and you want to keep that, you have to actually hit Command S or Control S to save because this is just the document editing interface with a fancy skin on it. So behind the scenes, it's behaving like a document would, like your text would. It would be neat to like have it just save as you go, like every change gets saved. That would be fine. Um, and I think in some, I think we've gotten used to that. So it's like that's the kind of UI you want. I think what I would do is probably make it like an option up here. I would put a checkbox and save as you go. Again, everything that someone will prefer one, someone will prefer the other. So make it an option. So yeah, this has been really fun to build, and I went away for a few weeks, and like I was hard to reach because I was just focused so hardcore on getting this parsing working, and it's just a lot of it was really tricky. And if you're here on this channel, you might be interested in some of the code aspects of code on this thing. Uh, and if you are like, if you're ever interested in making extensions for Visual Studio Code, Uh, first of all, it's a super rewarding experience. It's not really difficult. They expect you to use TypeScript, so if you're down with TypeScript, you can do that. I very stubbornly stuck to JavaScript everywhere, so this is all built in straight up JavaScript. Um, and in some places, even the like linter complains a little bit, like I don't like that. Like, I told you what mode. How many modes are there for JavaScript? So there are certain things it doesn't like, but overall, like because of the way it works, like one of the things that is a very annoying aspect, you want to send messages back and forth between your UI, that is to say the custom editor interface that I was just showing you, and the actual like provider, which is like the thing that is like handles messages from, like, no matter how many you have open, it's like one thing that gets the messages from all those windows. And that one provider is like, sending messages back and forth, and there's like no memory sharing at all between, like, stick say a reference to something in the provider on the window and just go for it. You have to make a copy, and the copy is a serialized thing, so it's like it's serialized, which makes it faster to transfer, but then it gets unserialized, so that process of serialization and deserialization like adds a little overhead. So keeping the messages small is a really good idea, and yet, like, when you do things like undo redo, you kind of are forced by the way this whole thing works to send the whole document through, or figure out what changed, and some way of parsing out just what changed. But it does tell you just what changed, which can be useful. But like being able to just pass those messages back and forth and knowing where they came from. Like I could have the UI like get every message like something changed, and then do something with that. Currently, it doesn't. Like the UI is very passive. It just like it waits for like a refresh, and it doesn't get like a message like this one field should. I may add that later because it might turn out to be useful, especially for the handling of external edits and keeping those messages small. The main problem I have is, yeah, if like the document changes a lot, I really do parse like the whole thing. Like if new lines are added, if lines are removed, if you're just commenting, uncommenting, and you're not changing the config, like being really strict about it, which is what these um, UIs do, is like I made sure it's like not modifying the file heavily. It even like if there was an old value, it puts it in a comment. This was the previous value, so you can easily go back and see what was changed, keep it or whatever if you want. But in general, like, yeah, since it's your UI, you get to do what you want. The other thing I want to do is with this panel on the side, I'll launch, launch the extension. I have launched it. Okay. No, thank you. I'll get newest via bit later. So I've launched the extension, and as you can see, let's see, where were we? Sorry, I forgot what we were even discussing. I always get the colors. They make me. They just they impress me so much. Let's see. Maybe I should put it over here so as I look, you can see that I'm looking in that direction. Do that. Ooh, the colors. Wow. All right. So yeah, I have an extra monitor over there, but you want to see it too. So here you go. Anyhow, I'm enjoying this process. So yeah, so if I have multiple windows open, I do undo redo. It sends these messages. It's very annoying. Um, and oh, here we go. I was gonna mention this. That's now I remember. I have this little panel down here, which is very unobtrusive because it doesn't really do anything yet. And down here is like where I would be more like, oh, here's where, like currently when you open the main panel, you see it does give you a little info about your very basic. Now I could really fill this up with like lots of info about your config, and I probably so that's the thing that I can, continue to expand on, is to display more information about your configuration, what peripherals you have and stuff. And then, there is this whole configure pane, which has been sitting for a long time. And really, the main reason that this never got built out was just I really didn't understand where to, the whole messaging thing, how to build it out. And I didn't have the parser ready. Like, taken so long. I swear it's probably been, I could say that the years that it's taken since the beginning of this thing being built have really, it's been that amount of time for me to get the parser sorted out. And if you see I'll show you what the code looks like real quick. All right, this is the schema right here. As you can see by I'll move this over to, whoop, there you go. Now you can see this is the code, and you can see it's just, there's a lot parsing a configs in such a way that you can like pull out every, what's enabled, what isn't. And really this is like, looking at things like if you check something, like it can see, oh, that means that this is enabled, and it knows how to parse all that stuff in the config. And so what it does is it actually just parses it. um, and then what it does is it actually runs some of this stuff in JavaScript, like converts some of the stuff that's in the config into JavaScript so it can run it and evaluate it. It gets very tricky. That's what a lot of this stuff is right here. You can see we're doing all these things where I'm like name matching. And these are very, specific, which is like one of the other things about this is like, it wasn't like, oh, I could make a very generic parser and have it work. And, I'd just put any old config file or any old, header file in there with defines in it, and it would know how to sort it out. No, because a lot of this stuff is like, it isn't explicit that something depends on something else. So I wanted to start to put that in. And so there are things like, does this depend on having, a hot end or a heater or whatever? So I have to actually write that out. And, it's expressive, but what it means is that as things are added, and these things have to be adapted. So obviously it's sustainable in a sense because I'm aware of what's going in and coming out of this thing. No one else is going to be able to pick up on this, I think. Hopefully someone will in the future, when this is no longer, in my hands. Someone will know what's going on with this. But that's, that this is for. Maybe I'll make sure to put this up on YouTube or somewhere so you can kind of like get some clue of how this all works. But in general, yeah, like the next phase is going to involve taking the auto build panel here and adding a update button. It'll show up like, it'll have the version underneath the firmware here. It'll say, oh, this is your firmware version 2.1.2. And it'll say, oh, that's not the current version you have loaded of Marlin. So it'll have a little upgrade button here. It'll say, do you want to upgrade? And you just hit update, and it'll go through all the, it'll, first thing it does is scrape your config to get all your options. Boom, out. Uh, and then it has the ability to like parse that with, it'll have the files that it needs from the older version of Marlin inside of this plugin that it'll then use to help it parse those. And I'll have them compressed so they'll be a little more parsable. Maybe even if it's possible, I could have them pre-squished into JSON. That would be cool at some point. But yeah, basically, since those aren't going to be varying a lot from the past, it's great because I have a little database, and I've made a spreadsheet of all the changes from version to version, which I still need to modify for recent changes going out in the next beta. Um, and oh, what else is there? Yeah, well, that's going to be cool. And then I was hoping to make that part of the build at some point as well. You'll just have it say, oh, you drop some old configs in there, and it'll say, oh, I see you dropped old configs, and it'll just do it as part of the build. So what I'll be doing that is adapting all the code that I'm writing for auto build Marlin and its custom editors, its parser, converting a lot of that to Python, and then bringing it over. Maybe I'll get a little help from some LLMs on that. We'll see. Some of them have like these million token windows now. It's like if it can handle, I've seen that it can handle chunks of code, but its attention is strange. And if it can really if it has a smart window, attention window where it can like, that's really useful for rewriting code. It's like, yeah, especially when they're very, very similar. In the case of Python and JavaScript, like it's almost one to one. Like every line will be like the same. They'll just be taking out the semicolons and curly braces and stuff and making it uglier and more outdented. But other than that, it'll be very similar, and it'll just, if it has a little window where it can do that, it'll work well. I've heard that Llama has that. It works pretty well. And I got a little beefy Ultra Mac Studio with an M1 Ultra that should be capable of handling that. But I've been trying out some of the services, I had to try out the latest, stuff from ChatGPT, AI. Is that what they're called? From OpenAI, ChatGPT, and their latest ChatGPT is pretty good, I have to say. Uh, so a lot of stuff going in there. Let's take a quick look at recent changes that have gone into Merlin. Um, and let's take a look at, let's see, what have I got here before I, oh, that was just from my editing of the config. Okay, put that away. Um, and we go to bug fix, which this is going to be renamed dev after this release. So you know, for developers, that'll make things a little clearer that that is really the head, and it pertains pretty much to everything. The bug fix, uh, we'll say it pertains to the latest. That'll make things simpler. And then if we the idea of bug fix 2 dot whatever will be, those will be, we'll be using we'll change those to LTS branches basically. And then some of those were based on releases, and then we were just patching those releases. Uh, but going forward, it'll all be based on bug fix. We'll just bring over, I'll just take a snapshot, and I'll add a commit that's, release stuff. And that's pretty much that how that's going to work. It'll simplify things a bit. I like simple. So, of course, we bumped the distribution date in case you were wondering. Uh, so, one of the things that just came in, which is very exciting, and thank you to Boyd uh, at GitHub for this one, uh, is it's a really beautiful HAL for the GD32 specifically. Now, you know, we've been chasing this demon for a while. There's licensing issues with using STM32 mixed with GD32, like for USB stuff. So, in open source land, I don't know what pertains to what, so we're just gonna go forward um, with this. But in general, my evaluation was, it's been looked at, it's been tried, it's work. Moving forward, if we look at the serial stuff, or I think that's actually, I've moved it lately. One of the things I did was move all the serial stuff a little bit around to make the howls a little. So some of the stuff that would have been up here in serial area has now been moved to serial.h. I have that right. And yeah, then we just set these like kind of values now. Index min, index max, and then there's like a serial ports file that works for all of them and creates the serial ports as needed based on these values that you give it and stuff. So, and then you give it, prefix it with the headers you might need to create the declarations of those serial ports. It comes out pretty well. Let's see, what is that called? Serial hook. Yeah, I really want to show you that because it came out kind of cool. I know you're not interested. I know. It's in the shared folder. Boom. Yeah, I love when I can consolidate things down to something. This used to be like we had to do something like this in every HAL. For like, every time we added a serial port, we'd have to go to each HAL and say, "Oh, you need a version. You need a version. You need a big hassle." Now you just tell it like, "Oh, you have these serial ports. Okay, well, we'll just map it based on, your config, and we'll give you the right messages and all these kinds of things, and then the messages come out with static asserts, so we can do things like combine messages and give you these somewhat prettier errors, although they're ugly if you look closer, but they're meant to be readable if you just read the first version of the output. Eventually, they'll make a version of static assert, or I can figure out some way of getting the build output, putting it into that little info window or something. But yeah, back to this again. I'm just gonna jump around. Uh, some of the info I want to show in here is, yeah, all that kind of, So like right now, I don't really know what to do with it. Uh, but that could be good. And then I think it would be another thing would be nice, just a little Marlin news in there. like an RSS feed, and then I could have stuff in the feed that would come like linked to things. Um, so that's a possibility, and it would be pretty easy. I could just make it part of each release, but and have them expire after a certain date or something. But yeah, that would be kind of fun. Put things in there. So whatever. It's an HTML blob. Um, so I'm thinking about how best to utilize this. But some of the things you definitely want to know are like if I have a certain config, hey, is there like a new version of that config? Or if I used a build from Marlin builds, like could I open it up in here and see, oh, there's a new build? And that'll again be some of what I want to add into uh, the Octoprint interface for building and configuring. It'll generally be like what you're seeing, with this stuff, except it'll be cleaner. It'll have probably a background that looks more like. Let's see, can I change the theme? Pick a theme, any theme. Let's see a light one. I have light themes here somewhere. Oh wait, is that light? There we go. Yeah, it'll probably look something more like this. So you'll be blinded by the light. But that's fine. But yeah, it'll have a dark theme when you're using the dark theme, um, and we'll just keep it. I like solarized personally. I hope you do too, because that's what we're using. So yeah, these are all again collapsible. If you do go switching to one, it opens it up. Kind of cool. I'm really proud of this. This UI is coming out now. Not a lot of people know about it, so I hope I'm gonna get the word out more. The think what again, it's down to these. Like Chris's basement used to be the most reliable. I have to pull my hand up here again. Chris's basement used to be the most reliable for that kind of stuff, and like he still does really great low level things like how to install a probe on your ender with things, but a lot of it is now it's definitely centering more on Clipper because that's where the action is right now. A lot of new printers coming out, they typically have Clipper on them. Again, our aim is to make Marlin 213 so irresistible that, or maybe 2.2, whatever comes next, so irresistible that everyone will want to use it. But yeah, that's definitely coming down to like that code fixing up stuff. So things like fixing up the serial ports so that you don't have to redo it every time you make a new HAL. Really important. Like even though it seems small and kind of niche, like such a big deal. So I'm happy that that exists now. Uh, Again, I'm doing the same thing with like the LCDs. I'm like making those so they can combine together uh, in a way that like you can take any LCD with any board and you just name the adapter that connect them together. And if you need an adapter, like most of the so many boards, you don't even need an adapter because they have the two EXP1 and two ports are already mapped out precisely the way that they would be for any display that you would want to attach to them. The exception, if in case you're wondering, is like MakerBase, who has their plugs flipped the other way. So you typically have to wire them backward. Um, and so the adapter for that is the MKS backward adapter. However, you don't need it if you're connecting an MKS board to an MKS display, you see. So it comes like down to that. You have to check and see, oh, you're using an MKS board with an MKS display. We're good. No warning. But if you're using a non-MKS board or a non-MKS display, then yeah. So that's one of the things that's coming up a lot. That's going to be uh, after 213. Sorry, uh, but very soon after because I've been really, really champing at the bit to finish it. Or is it champing at the bit? Chomping at the bit. You have to speak in like mid-Atlantic English for that. Let's see what else was added. So MKS TinyB, we added a warning when you build for MKS TinyB. We already had one. Now we got another one. This one, oh, we also added the warning for the Creality 422 boards because some of them ship with GD32, some of them ship with STM32. So it's a reminder when you do the build to check, and you can turn off the reminder if you already know. Again, the TinyB ADC reference voltage warning, same idea. If you're on the MKS TinyB, we're the components are variable, so you really need to make sure that you know what the reference voltage for the analog ADC is. That's important. The thing uses its own voltage. Like typically, if you wouldn't, you would think you wouldn't need to know. Like the thing would just use its voltage, its own input voltage as but somehow it doesn't know how to jibe unless you give it some special number. So in this case, the default is 2.565. The so the submitter indicated they were missing. They're seeing temperatures off by 10 degrees Celsius because of the thermistor reference. Just uh, so one of the things you do need to worry about. I'm working on adding tests for Windows and Mac OS. That's not really cogent to you. A little tweaks to like the things so you can have delays that last longer than 24.4 days, up to 48.8 days of delay. So if that matters to you, it also is like part of it was I wanted to start using smaller numbers for some types of delays if we can, just for those uh, tiny boards, your 1280s and so on that don't have a lot of space for flash. Some of them have a lot of extra RAM, but the one for those that don't. Tweaking warnings, blah blah blah. Let's see. Anything else exciting? Oh, that's usually the things with stars or the ones, so I'll just go to those. Yeah, here's editable homing current. Yay, you can edit your homing current now for your trinamic drivers. Yay. Except for your 2240s, I think it is. Which one is I still haven't got done yet. Sorry. I really need to finish that research. That's a hard one. Maybe I'll do a stream where I'll get like all the developers together and you can like point and laugh at all the things I don't get. I'll put it up on, I'll go up on Discord or whatever. Oh, I was going to test the Twitch chat. Let me do a quick test. I'm probably going to finish up real soon because my roommate's coming back and he's kind of boisterous and drunk typically. Um, but hey, saves on the rent. Um, I kid, I kid. I love him. If you're watching, Ryan, I love you, buddy. Where was I? Oh, Twitch. Where are you, Twitch? Oh, there you are. Your little purple thing, little cute purple thing. Hey, you got a new mobile app? Wow, let's go. Shush. I don't want to steal your stream. All right, I don't know who that is. Is it me? Is it me? I'm all caught up. Let's go to my live chat. My live me. My live me. Where's me? Why am I not finding myself? This should be alphabetical. What is this? All right. Oh, wait, I'll go to my profile. There we go. There me. There's me. Okay. There's my chat. There's my chat. There's no one here. That's great. Oh, gives me more freedom. Um, hello. I'll just write in hello and make sure it comes up. Oh, there I am. Okay, just checking. Just need to make sure that chat blob works. Usually I have to set it up a couple times in between my uses of OBS. Seems to be good. All right, moving on. Um, so that's really good. You want to be able to edit your homing current. Great. Things for geeks is individual TMC flags. What does that even mean? Just meant I broke out these macros that you were using throughout the code, and I just replaced them with these. This is a little trick we'd use to make it possible to shrink some code. Like it makes it possible to um, make things that take up 3 lines take up, excuse me, 1 line. uh, so it allows us to save some space vertically, and uh, that often makes things line up nicer and it makes it easier to read. For those of you who disagree, well, I get it. Also, a more robust ternary macro for all you nerds out there who are into metaprogramming. I used to do ternary like this, where I used a variant of the earlier macro. But I realized suddenly that I could actually create two macros, one that doesn't omit anything and one that does emit whatever you give it. I think these are very normal things you've seen before. But in this case, um, based on the option you want to check whether it's enabled or not, or defined basically, or set to one, and not set to zero or false, basically, uh, it'll either omit or emit what it's given here, and that's really cool because this is where it gets interesting. Um, because of the way this works, I have a down here it does a defer, and this defer does a magic trick where it keeps things from getting evaluated. So this, if this is like a weird thing where it's trying to mush together things to become a pin number, and it's one of them is -1, which has been one of our banes, it'll actually generate this horrible error that's hard to read about how the pin doesn't make any sense, and it's like, this is actually a little more robust. It won't generate that error in a lot of cases. That's kind of nice. I'm being chased by black helicopters. I'm just kidding. I'm not being chased by black helicopters. It's just I live near an airport and also a medical helicopter route. Just like always flying over because of all your medical issues. Stop having those, people. It's making it loud out here. So anyway, this is a silly thing, but it just basically means that when you build Marlin, if there's like a certain error, you won't see some quite as ugly errors. And for a lot of cases, it allows me to do things I couldn't do before in the code. And that'll show up later. Um, Surprisingly, I didn't make a lot of examples. I didn't like deploy a lot of examples here. But anyway, what else? We got rid of a thing that was like proposed but never used. That thing doesn't exist. You can set it all day long; it won't do anything. So anyway, it's gone. Uh, I don't know what else we did. Some did more of that uh, fixing up dwell so you can dwell for 48 days if you want to, which great. Dwell for 48 days. Um, we did. I think some of these may be related to like a rollover. Like if you've been running a job for 24 days, um, and it gets to the end of the milliseconds clock. Like yes, it takes 24.4 days to run out the clock in milliseconds. So if your print has been running, your job is running that long, um, it could cause weird things to happen. Now, there's some argument to be made, like, well, what if a cosmic ray causes your clock to be set really? Suddenly, your clock goes to some weird value and about to roll over, 1 hour into a job. Well, you want that to handle that elegantly, makes sense. So that's what we're doing there. We're making it slightly more elegant. There was some fix of the ESP32. It's a lot of stuff from Ellen's P here on GitHub, constantly filling in the gaps and finding things that are little weird screw ups, um, which is great. We need that. And it's not always me, which is great. Uh, Often it's just stuff that's just overlooked or got lost in the mix. And oftentimes I'm finishing. This is the thing. I'm typically inundated with so many issues. It's like I have to review a bunch, and it's like while I'm waiting for one to do its like verification build, I'm moving on to another one. So yeah, I will sometimes lose track. And that's the whole point of having all these commits and things, not to lose track. In the case of that one where we had this max radius, that was added, like in the middle at the start of like a new pull request, and I was like, oh well, this will probably stay. Uh, and then it ended up being, oh, we figured out a better solution using the printable radius and other things that we could calculate. Um, and so, really cool. Uh, it worked out well. And I hope that I hope to see more stuff coming from those quarters. Anyway, we have some other things. What else is going on since the last release? Let's see. We have Pro UI doing some things, a little just cleaning up the menu sizes so that they're allocating only the amount they. Some other fixes, Manta is fixed. I don't know what it is, but also always Big Tree Tech ins files have errors in them. So that's been good. But in this case, ramps. We had a ramps error. I mean, there's so many things to keep track of. What we really need is AI to go through and verify everything, right? And tell us, like, hey, I think there's an issue. But typically, it's like they make stuff up so often, it's like you wouldn't know. Anyway, what else happened here? We did a little. I'm thinking about lambdas a lot lately. I'll tell you what, lambdas are cool. Lambdas are very cool. Um, there are little functions that can live inside of another function, and you can just, or pass them as arguments and stuff, and they're just like so convenient for things like I have a set of menu items I need to repeat within a context, but also within another context, and I don't want to have to constantly remember, oh, if I change these, I have to change those. So making them, this is just the common thing of making a function, of course. But in this context, it's just not convenient to make them a function because of the stuff you have to pass. It's better if you can use stuff that's within the loop. And sometimes with lambdas, you can use some of the local variables to set them up. So this is really convenient in that because of the way this works and the way our menu system works, the local variables are actually static globals, and that are used within each menu to just handle the processing, and so those become more easy to use for our lambda. We could, yes, conceivably use functions, but making them lambdas is more. So anyway, here's a typical lambda. It has little braces followed by a curly brace, and that is basically a function taking nothing. And there's no you can actually add. Let's bring another one down. Another one that's like boom, editable. Go to the screen. Um, and here's one that has an ampersand in it. I forget what it means. I should know. It has to do with like which variables become available and made available, references, and so on, or as copy, not necessarily copies, but so it gives you references to things. So anyway, you can look them up. They're very cool. But as I'm thinking more about them, one of the things I'm thinking about is like, wow, if we can pass these around, uh, there's so many places where that would be useful. Like when you make a status message, that should expire once the bed is done heating. You don't want to just turn on that message and then have to have the bed heating routine like take care of the message, like clearing it. It didn't even know when it was set. Like it could get to the end and say bed is heated, which is fine. It's fine too. And then for that, you want it to expire after a period. But if you're trying to minimize your messages, you just want it to expire when it's heated. You could have a little function you attach that just is like, yeah, this is the expire function. It checks periodically, should I expire? Every couple seconds, should I expire? And then it calls this function, to see if the bit, and if it is, then it expires. Or it could, you know, do something like, oh, the bed heating was canceled, so it could expire. And like all these things could be checked within one little thing that's attached to the status rather than having like the code around it kind of like imposing on the status, if you know what I mean. And, or, if you were to change the message, you would also change the condition at which it clears. Or you may have no condition, it never clears. And then like this sort of would allow us to, we already have, clearing based on expiring after a period of time, simple enough. Just attach a function that, does that. Rather than the way we do it now, which is like outside function being run periodically that looks at the. It should really just be calling into the status. Hey, call your expire function. You do it, you know when you're supposed to expire. We don't really know, and you don't have to watch, and you wouldn't have to keep track of a lot of state and stuff. It would be all handled by these little that were set up in the places where they're appropriate, and then you can consolidate that. Other things, in the architecturally, you can think about things like passing messages and stuff. That gets a little messy because then you have to build buffers. You may have a limit on the number of messages that can enter events and so on, and you broadcast that. Those can be really useful, and we are kind of like as we're going forward, like we have APIs that are starting to be built out a little better. That are like more centralized instead of having, you know, a place in the code where the temperature was reached, so you need 7 different displays. And believe me, we do have places in the code. Okay, this is dumb, I know. I'm the first to admit, where it's like, oh, if this display is here, we call this thing to refresh the screen, or if this one is enabled, then we have to call and send it to this screen number with this sub number, and it's like, oh my god, okay, I know why these are here, um, and it's like because they implemented it that way. The whoever vendor decided that's the way to do it, and we don't tell you don't do it that way. We should don't do it that way, but that we don't provide necessarily better ways. Um, but there is a better way, and that is, we have an API called EXTUI, which is Extensible UI. It's meant for this kind of thing, and you can kind of stick it on anything you want. Um, or you can use, if you're using parts of Marlin UI, you can kind of like build on that. But my suggestion for vendors and developers and hobbyists alike who are just looking to add on is, uh, utilize the like one of those APIs, and if it doesn't have a function to say send a message about something important that could be displayed in your UI, and like say, I don't know what, maybe you have a probe heater and it doesn't have a thing that sends a message when the probe is done heating, you could add that and just say, oh, well, if there's an EXTUI, then send a message about that to the EXTUI. Normal behavior will be do nothing, and it'll compile down to nothing, which is great. Uh, and but if you need that hook, add it, add it to EXTUI, and just make it just part of your vendor fork, but do it that way. When we go to pull your vendor fork, instead of having to look around all these places you sprinkled new stuff throughout the code, we would have this, centralized EXTUI thing that's like, now that's the way to, we could then say, oh, well, great. Now that whatever new display comes along can do that. Or if we needed it, or if we thought that was a good idea for something we forgot, build that in and be like, oh yeah, good idea. I don't know why we didn't have that. Similar to like not being able to edit the homing currents, like little gaps. You want to be able to fix those things. Um, so little things, moving the about in games, bottom, there is now a thing called mag-mounted probe servo number. And again, servo number for a magnetically mounted probe with a servo mechanism, um, which I would love to see an example of. Like, I think a lot of we have so many esoteric things like mag-mounted, uh, you know, uh, dual extruder or whatever, that switching extruder and things, and seeing those in action. It'd be nice to have those like in some way, you know, in the documentation, point to a video or have it embedded in the I have this HTML interface inside of auto build. Maybe I could add little things like anytime there's a link to a video, I could put a little video link inside that opens up a video about it. That would be cool, huh? Let's say we did that, and we'll do that for upcoming configs. Anytime there's a video about some option, I'll be sure to link to it in the config, and in the interface you'll see a little video thing that when you click on it, it'll pop up the video, and that'll work. Yeah, I don't have to write that down. I'll remember that. Extensible temperature LCD preheat. You may wonder why you care about LCD preheat being more extensible. How did I make it so? Oh, I see. Yeah, right now it was like based on this. It was based on using individual flags, and I was like, "This is dumb. We need one flag that just has bits." So a very simple thing where when we do preheat from the LCD, if you have a preheat thing that, like, say you've got a chamber and a laser and a cooler and I don't know, a jacuzzi that turns on when you start printing, all those things could be part of that instead of the way it was before, which is like add a new flag. It's like annoying for developers. And then again, chamber preheat completion. We forgot parts of chamber preheat. I'm sorry. This was a missing thing. This is a bug fix, honestly. It says UI, but it's really we got PowerShell compatibility, so those will work better if you use PowerShell. We have a new thing called LCD buffer. I'm going to call it W buffer, and I'm going to speak in ubby dubby. Wobit W yabu thubbink. Bye bye furbins. Uh, Hubbier Ubbiz Ubba Nabu Fabi Chubber. Abel Sabi Dubby Double Bubble Bubba Fubber. Yep. Double Bubble Fubba Bubba. I have a hard time doing Ubby Dubby. I'm sorry. I'll work on that. Anyway, yeah, this is real simple. Look how simple it is as a feature. All it did was add a thing where when it uses either the SSD 1309 with F or not. And basically, it means if you have this type of display, you can spend a K of RAM on your board, and now your screen will update much more cleanly and quickly too. So that's nice. That's just nice. It's not nobody likes flicker, and if you're filming, it'll look. That's another good thing is if you're filming your screen, it'll look a lot nicer. You might still have lines and stuff from the synchronization, but if it's an OLED, you should have no troubles. Wabat subo ebabber. Sorry. Fixing some things here. Let's see. Cosmetics, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of things that came up in this last round. We did add a new feature, configurable machine name. What does it do if you use M550? It's now compatible. So yeah, M550. Let me see if I added that to the documentation. I may have forgotten. I'll make a note. M550. Nope. Look at it real quick. That's configuration blah. So it's under G code. Boop. Oh yeah, I didn't put these in sections. So we'll just go by number 550. Yeah, it's good that I'm going over this with you because I don't want to forget. Let's copy that and make a new file called M550. Yeah, we'll fill it with M540 stuff. And we'll just change that to 50. And it's set machine name. Capitalize it to be cool. And let's see. Does it report the machine name? It does. Also, it uses this string, which is really fun. That's kind of cool. Change machine name. And it was suggested, and I was like, that sounds fun. It's tricky though. It was a little tricky because, well, you can see all the stuff that went into it. It's kind of okay. Maybe a lot of this isn't vital to that, but in order to be able to print it on all the displays that had a machine name printed for their info screens, it was like a little bit of a hassle. So yeah, it was a lot of extra stuff done. Anyway, that's not the important thing. The important thing is that you get a cookie. A new feature requires configurable machine name group. What should we put this in? How about config? Not motion, right? Units, not units. This is kind of like an M150. Hosts? It's kind of for hosts. What do you think? Go with that. just for the heck of it. Let's see. Notes used, blah, 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 to ensure, blah. Okay, parameters. What did we learn about parameters? We learned it has a p parameter with a name. Not optional. A little tricky. Um, and I wonder if I'm supposed to, I don't know if I should do that. It'll just still say the same. Let's take a look at what this looks like. Boop. Check it out. I have a local copy. So M550, it's new, it's special. Okay. Yeah, it shouldn't say that. We'll just go with also, it works by another method is set the name just using a string parameter. You can leave P off and just set it by 50 string. Um so see if there's anything like that where it's tag string. I think I've seen that before. Yeah, there are a few. Forgot I was doing that. Okay. Boom. I don't know. I mean, you kind of have to say true because if you leave them out, it will report string parameter, um, the full line. I think the idea would be like if a P is the first character, like you know, um, the first uh, character must uh, must be a quoted string. Quoted string. If it starts with P. uh, yeah. I guess we'll call it a loose string parameter. I don't know what else to call it. What does that look like when I put it on the documentation? Make it prettier? Not so much. I'll just put in some examples. All right, examples. Okay. Notice that this particular YAML thing, when I hit backspace, like from here, um, instead of just deleting it deletes the colon. What's up with that? Anyway, examples, and we'll use 3 examples, and I guess I'll borrow some examples. Or else, I don't know. Give me the free code post. Okay. Right. So pre, um, set the name with parameter. Hello. Boop. Okay. Code M550E. Uh, all right. And how about set the name with loose string parameter, you know, M550. How about right? Right, so you got that. There is no such thing, but we're going to poison the internet with this information. Right. How about report the name? Report printer name. Boom. So here, if you do this, you'll see M550, and out comes boop. Does it say echo? I don't even know. I haven't looked. Does it say echo? It looks like it should. It says yes, it echoes, but it doesn't say the word echo in front of it. It just says RepRap name. Boop. And it puts quotes around it, I presume. Nope. Nope. I want to hit return, but I think maybe it's waiting for tab. Okay. Some editors do it one way, some. Okay. How's that? How's that? Let's see what our examples look like. Oh, aren't they pretty? Okay, P. Got the name of loose string. Report the printer name. There you go. And yeah, string name. I just need to say. Obviously, there is no tag. Let's see what. Oh, it has a tag. Let's see what tag string looks like in other places. How did we deal with it? Nothing. We just didn't do anything. Name. I need to be able to say or somehow. That's one of the things I've left out. Is like, yeah, this or this. It's one of the things with the it's a tricky one. Key name or string. Like I don't have two usages. Like it would be nice if I had ability to say parameter usage one, usage two, but it's one of the things we do. But the examples kind of clarify. So I hope that makes some sense. And let's just do this. Machine name. Set report the machine. And then set report machine name. Set the machine name using string parameter if no parameter is given. Report current machine name. The other thing too is, did I make it say it has to be editable for it to report it, or I forget. I forget. Oh, it only configurable. Well, that's an interesting one. Like if you can't set it, why would you want to just report it? Because you can get the same thing with M150. So yeah, this is really just added for compatibility with other firmware that has this G code. So anyway, let's drop that into the docs quick so we don't forget. And I believe it's already in the RepRap wiki. You always end up going to the wiki when you visit me in these streams. I do spend a lot of time editing this thing, but I sometimes forget. Like, there it is, set name. That's what it says. Marlin 213. I already added it. Okay. Um, and I should mention here. Uh, any string of printable characters except semicolon, which still means yeah. So anyway, with if you do a P, you can see kind of why I'd be like, why, yeah, like the idea of setting it with a loose string. I forget why I put that in there. I think the idea was that you don't necessarily want to always use P, and the quote character is itself kind of like it's like a parameter. So you could say, oh well, when you use the string parameter, it starts with a quote. And then if you had some command that doesn't take anything except for a string, like you would do that, but then the P would have to be the thing that comes at the end. Like that would be like some commands are like that. It's just weird, but because our protocol sucks, it doesn't suck, but it's weird. Uh, there's some things that I definitely want to definitely add for Marlin 2.2 or 3, what do you want to call it? For example, like the way that RepRap framework can take parameters with colons in between if you're for different axes, like or multiple whatevers, uh, is one of the things I wanted to handle or add as an option. So and then other things as we now that we have more complicated boards, we can do things like oh you want to be able to do equations or have variables. You could add G code variables and being able to do equations inside your G code. We already have loops in a very primitive form, so that's kind of cool. Gonna make it that 515 name. And usually I like to make a note of where it came from in terms of the Marlin pull request. In this case, it was boop 27331. Or was it 27731? Gotcha. See, I had myself fooled there. 277. I can remember numbers. All right. Good enough. Oh, so I need to rebase. Hold on. mfdoc mfrb, my little shortcut. Rebase. Please do. Boop. Hey. Well, I guess I was using my laptop last time I updated stuff. Oh, which by the way, I was update. What was one of the things I updated? Um, in case you're wondering, one of the things that I updated was on the download page. Um, I now builds browse builds is here. I don't know where else I how to put it. How about here? Binary install. Many vendors provide a firmware bin or firmware hex file for easier install. And this is what I'm telling you now. We also provide pre-built binaries of Marlin 213 and up for all contributed examples. Check the Marlin's builds repository to see if the printer is included. If you have a hex file, you can use a tool like Cura, Repetier Host, or Xloader for Windows to upload the hex file to the printer over USB. I'm going to probably add a droplet to auto build for that. You can just drag and drop. It'll upload it if it can. Since like you'd want to use maybe you want to use DFU tool or something else, and if we could figure out from the binary like where it came from, but typically like with a if you dropped a hex, that's where we'd want to flash it. If you dropped a bin, well, you might flash it if you had the right kind of connector attached and stuff, but typically it would just get copied to USB or SD. So, oh, I need to fix that. Little butterfly's not quite right. I need to put a non-breaking space after. Oh, anyway, boop. Or maybe just make the page the right size. Probably fix that. I could probably fix that. This game Y, blue sky. Follow. I think it's this one. It does have a non-breaking space after. Maybe it's because it's so wide or something. Well, actually, these are all kind of crappy. I think I just need to fix the spacing on all these. But I won't worry about it too much right now. I've been doing a lot of things with the CSS on the site lately. Um, and as you can see, yeah, they're just like, it's cute. Okay, so anyway, oh, I totally need to fix them. Ooh, those should totally not be squished like that. Oops, that's me. So anyway, yeah, and if you have a bin file, you'll need to copy it to an SD card and start the print. More detailed instructions may be outlined in the vendor's website or included in the configurations README file. So yeah, you typically want to get the configuration that goes with the binary build. So one of the things I may do is in the next iteration, copy over the README from build so that there's a copy in the builds folder, so you don't have to go hunting for it. Um, so yeah, that may be important. So we have that. So that's cool. And then I think I did a few other little tricks here. Not much, but to install source, you'll need to download the source code and edit the configuration files. I just kind of cleaned this up a little bit. In general, the main thing was I wanted to get that up there. Binary install people, and it's there now. So that's one of the things I think is going to make a big difference going forward. Is just we have a lot of people requesting pre-built firmware, and they go to places like Facebook, and they get stuff from Nick, and or they may go to uh, Pro firmware or other fork community forks, and that's cool. Each of those community forks does a great job of focusing its efforts on a very particular machine, um, and some of them are really great in in terms of coming and giving back to us. We got a lot of stuff from Pro UI for a while. I don't know what's slowed down there, but we haven't lately. Parts of that may be closed source. Now, I made an agreement, very casual agreement with the author, Miguel, that was cool, as long as he made it buildable by making it into a .a file, a library of some kind, and distributed it with the source code so you can build it. And if because that's a very important consideration for me. uh, I was talking to GPT, and it's again, I don't trust GPT to save my life, but back and forth a lot is like maybe I don't have the right to do that, to allow him to like close source parts of his stuff. So he should be opening them. So for those of you who are like into pro UI, like just know it's a tenuous situation, but it is what it is. I don't think it's not like he's a vendor who's like you know abusing the GPL. In this particular case, it's just someone who's like they make a profit from having their own separate fork. Okay, maybe this is very similar, like a vendor, but and they do some special stuff. And the thing is, we can kind of duplicate a lot of their efforts if we want to, like on our fork. But I would much rather the code have parity. And I am trying to make like these more universal APIs to you know, and those universal APIs are like um, yeah, they're like they make things possible that uh, for everyone across the board. And like so the more that we can consolidate those and like bring over the things that work for you, like if there's a reason, for example, Pro UI is like, well, we don't get enough of what we want in mainline Marlin to work for us, and so we're just keeping it separate. I get that. We can't be at everybody's beck and call on every project's like, and there's like a lot of our people who are doing triage are like they have busy lives, and they can be a little bit they can get distracted, and I get distracted, we all get distracted. So like having a very focused like project like that where it's like really cool, it's cool. But whenever he tries to submit stuff over here, it's like it does turn into a small mess. there was a period of time when I like got really gung ho about doing like coding standards. One of the developers was like, "Yeah, this is very important. You should do this and this and this." I was like, "Oh, okay. You want to do that? Well, okay. Well, let's do it then." And I just like went through and like hacked it together. I was like, "Yeah, is this what you wanted? Yeah, is this what you like? Is this making things easier for everybody? And in general, like the code is what it is. It's like I do certain like doing certain having a certain preference in like the way that things are done in camel case or whatever, uh, or some other type of style is like it's not the thing that keeps people in or gets people in or out of the project. It really is much more about people wanting to experiment with this stuff and having some ability to code already and being willing to like just follow these trails of where things go. Oh, this calls that. Okay, I'll search for that function. Oh, there it is. It calls this other thing. Okay, I'll search for that. Oh, there it is. Follow the trail, follow the breadcrumbs, and little by little it becomes evident. Oh, this is how this thing works. It's just an Arduino sketch with a loop, a setup and a loop. And then it has some interrupts, which are admittedly they're fancy. Interrupts are cool, but all they really do is like they just set up a time to like jump out, do a thing, and come back. And the thing they do is step, or set up stepping, some kind of stepping, like a temperature. That's about it. There's not a huge amount going on. Our ADC is happening, our motion is happening, and temperature management. All that stuff is like needs to be interrupt driven, but it's really just a loop. In fact, and I've probably mentioned this before. If you go and look at Clipper, the way it works on your main board is just a loop. It's just like, oh, time passed. I mean, it makes the most sense if you think about it. Interrupts, they have overhead. Everything has overhead. If you're just running a loop and looking, oh, it's time to do this, it's time to do that, uh, that can be pretty tight. There's no like, dispatcher, a lot of, crap going on. I mean, there's definitely dispatching stuff going on inside of like Clipper. It has really clever hook system and all this other stuff. Check it out. It's a very cool app, but it's totally built with the idea that your board is like, best running in a tight loop. There's no, it's not really using the full features of the hardware and stuff, which is kind of interesting. But interrupts have their place, and they fulfill a certain thing. Using them for motion is kind of crazy in a way. I mean, it definitely is like every step or like set of steps and computation in that realm has the overhead of like context saving and restoring, which is all about what interrupts do. So that interrupt overhead just it's understandable why that would be like, oh, you don't want that. On the other hand, now you're pairing a necessary other piece of hardware, Raspberry Pi, probably a big fancy touch screen on it, and you get all that really cool UI, which I love. In fact, I look forward to getting myself a Bamboo in here and a Clipper in here, a Clipper-based printer, something with a really nice UI, probably one of the Crealities, like one of the K printers, and just and honestly, I have my old Prusa here in the works. Uh, but I really want to like get a modern Prusa, something that's more and just really just soak in the consolidation of the UI, and really just kind of like emulate the best that each of them has to offer in terms of its user experience. And first time setup is one of the things again coming up, that kind of thing. So anyway, I thought it would be a good idea. Like it is Friday, and every Friday I'm supposed to be doing these little sessions with you all. Um, and I wanted to like make this Friday one that I honor that. So finally got around to it. Here we are. Uh, the next phase is after this little beta 3 is a very short round, couple weeks, just a couple weeks of just collecting bugs, bug reports, patching up little things. Uh, we did get actually one of the patches I wanted to show you too. I don't know if it's exciting to look at the code or what the patch is, but let me dig in here. Marlin, where was I? It should still be on that one. So we're down to, we have a board LCD serial port, so we can now check based on the board what serial port it's supposed to be set to for your LCD by default. Uh, we have fixes for games and color. You can now play games on your color screens. So yes, there are games hidden in Marlin. A little Space Invaders game that I wrote, and a little Breakout game that I wrote, and a little Snake game that I wrote. And if you look at the code, it's very basic. I mean, they're so basic. It's fun to write these little games. And yeah, they run on the graphical LCD, your regular monochrome graphical LCD, and they also run on your color LCD now. And which ones? Let's take a look. Um, which ones they run on? Hold on. Same author. I'm kind of looking for his author icon because it was fixed recently. Uh, that's the fix, but that's not the original one. Well, anyway, I was looking for something else. Um, anyway, move down. There's a min power setting which was missing. It's back. There is a let's see, config comments, help units. Others, I fixed some configuration export stuff. Added some more comments to the Chrome Wizard code. Oh, this is the one I was pointing out. Apparently, this piece of code was just sitting around, hadn't been hacked together properly. So if you're using fixed time motion and you heard unusual sounds or had unusual behavior, retry it and let us know uh, what's going on with fixed time motion. We're not getting a whole lot of testing on this, and I really want to dig into it myself as I'm building this printer too, um, and see how it handles fixed time motion. Um, but yeah, check it out, see how it's working for you. In general, I'm feeling pretty confident in it. The one place is where we've got it's kind of fallen down is that it still has to be turned off to do homing and stuff. So we'll have to keep working on that. It's a new feature. It's integrated a little differently. It interacts with our stepper ISR, but it also has its own user land or main loop processing as well, which is kind of cool. Again, it means less overhead for like interrupts for certain things. In essence, what it's doing is it's loading up a big buffer full of like moves, and then in the main uh, thread, we'll say the main loop, it's doing this period like it sees, oh, the buffer is getting close to empty, we need to refill it, so it fills up the next load of the buffer, and then the interrupt is just running those little like pre-set up commands, and so it's doing all the timing and everything is being done there. um my camera might have died. Hold on, my mic is working. Let me switch scenes. What's going on? How weird. Well, pretend my face is moving. You can hear my voice, so I'll do some things with this. Maybe I need to disconnect my camera. Try that. A little weird. Let's see, this one has the other camera. That was that one. Um, Switch it to. Come back and see, maybe it'll work. Hey, okay. Look at that. I can fix things. Not bad. All right. So going back to we're going down the list again. Okay. Sorry about that. I don't know if the whole, I guess the video didn't freeze. It was just, okay. So yeah, this is pretty cool. So yeah, this whole spiel fixed that. So very excited. But yeah, the way it works, very cool. Window, boom, it's running these commands. It's doing the best of both. Like a lot of what, like we're calculating obviously the moves for linear moves that we run in this regular stepper interrupt. We're calculating those obviously in the main loop, sticking them in the planner buffer and doing all the acceleration deceleration stuff. Um, and then those are running. And once they're running, we don't modify. um, how they join up. The the buffer will run, each chunk of the buffer, as we call it, or each segment will run as it runs by that point. With this, it's a little, it's so just in time. It's like, if you needed to like do something like, oh, we switched modes, we now need to do a sudden slowdown. You could compute that before you sent it off, or you could do something with the buffer before you allowed it to get into the interrupt, which is kind of neat. Um, the stuff in our interrupts is like the last rework of it was really really well done. Everyone involved in that, like, I want to applaud them. We got, we broke up the phases and we made sure that like all the stuff that's going to step happens like, early. It just really improved the timing. um, and one of the things that's coming through with 213 is like very improved timing and, of like small segments, improved handling of arcs and stuff like that. So really great work from everyone. Here's another one. We added all these flyboards. See, this is what I'm talking about, people. Marlin is not dead. Okay. Fly. Fly is like, these boards are great. These guys are amazing. I have a few, and I haven't had time to dig into them as much as I really want to. Was waiting for CAN bus stuff to come in, and a lot of that did. So this is probably why Fly is like jumping in. But this is just 24 days ago. All these Fly boards from the Fly 3D team. Like, kudos to you guys. I'm really excited. But what this, just means that we're not dead, people. I was just talking about, on Blue Sky with one of our folks there, who has really into, who's fixing up a bunch of old school like Ultimakers and things, um, about the current situation. Like, just the fact that single boards are still happening. um, and there's it's just exciting what can be done just by, without modifying your hardware at all. You tweak the you just replace the software, and suddenly, like, whoa, it's quieter, it's smoother, it's more reliable, it's like using less energy, it's faster, it's like everything is better. And you didn't have to change a thing, and you've got this, you know same old thing. And so the question, is, what does this mean for, RepRap going forward? Well, it comes back to us. We don't have to chase after, a million boards and printers that are coming out with Marlin on them right now. And it's like, this summer is going to be so much fun because we get to focus on the users. We get to focus on, uh, really just like our rep wraps. That's why I'm rebuilding my Fuchsia. I'm like, wow, like, we've got new components now. And if you go online, they cost like a third of what they used to, even in these current times. Like, I can get an extruder, a really good like hot end, uh, old school hot end for like $30, 35, $40 with the extruder, or even less, uh, and just hack that on there, and it's like better than anything we had in back in the day. Yet it costs like nothing. It's just because everybody's caught up in fabrication. There's like, it's so many new fabricators out there than there used to be. We didn't have, these places that you could just order 3D prints from and all this other stuff. This is all so new. So what it means for rep wrappers right now is just that the cost is so much lower. You know, everything has come down, and the convenience is so much better. So yeah, we're getting a lot of new things happening, and we'll find our own way of making newer, better things that will spawn whole new, printer manufacturers. The field as it is right now, it is what it is. We have who we have. We've got our bamboos and we got our Prussias, and they're all in play. And I think that everybody is going to stick around. But I really want to see, Lulzbot, have its next renaissance um, real soon. One of the things I have to fix up for them, in this next little round for the next beta, um, is like handling of SD card recovery if there's like errors or flakiness. Apparently, it's not recovering greatly, so we have one fix that was thrown in. It's like a brief. I think it retries once or something. It looked like it wasn't quite right, so I'm going to go back and tweak that, send it off. Hopefully that will be better. We'll get that into 213. But yeah, for those of you who are using lulz bots, I mean, like, this is a great time bot user. Your next upgrade is going to be amazing. Of course, if it turns out they're going to switch to Clipper, I'll be like, oh, okay. That's good too. Use all the things. We're open source. They haven't switched to Duet or anything, so I assume that we're all on the same page with this single board best solution stuff. Um, so anyway, what else is left to talk about in this last pile? Anything that exciting? Let's see. The flyboards are exciting. Um, we did fix some sensor pins. Like again, MakerBase and Big Tree Tech, because there's just so much. I guess that's just why we tend to get more errors from them. Is most of the boards we have are MakerBase and Big Tree Tech. So all the pins files, we're just gonna have to learn to triple and quadruple check them. Oftentimes, like we go and we look at the schematic and it turns out the schematic was wrong. Go and I fix some pin I think was wrong, and it turns out we had it right and the schematic was wrong. So yeah, it's a little tricky. What else is new? Oh, I made a little script for people who want to like set up your Mac to compile the simulator. It's a hassle to get GCC set up right, so I added them a new script, Mac GCC, which you'll find, and just looks to see if you have Homebrew or if you have Mac ports. It figures out which path you have based on using the appropriate commands for it, I guess. And then it basically just tries to find GCC. It sets your path. It puts in your path or um, yeah. And so basically, and then you can say, oh, and there's a usage up here. I'll show you real quick. Mac GCC, Apple, Mac ports, Homebrew. There you go. So if you type in Apple, it'll go back to using, it'll switch back. So when you type GCC, it'll use Xcode's GCC, which is actually Clang. And if you type Mac ports, it'll use Mac ports. And if you type Homebrew, it'll use Homebrew. And it just looks to see that they're actually there. And then installs them if they're not. And when you use the Apple one, it removes the aliases that would have been there. Um, Typically, your Homebrew or your ports is going to be overriding the system path, so that's what you want. And so, as long as the aliases are there, it'll do the right thing. So that's kind of what we're doing, is we're just creating symbolic links or aliases. So yeah, use that if you want to build the simulator. Um, I've been using the simulator a lot lately. It's just good for debugging again, and developing tricky stuff. Like obviously I couldn't do like the uh, homing current stuff because we don't have simulated trinamic drivers, but yeah, as we the simulator itself could improve in a lot of ways. I'm kind of anxious to see like what I know there actually is kind of a secret simulator out there that's got a cooler looking printer layout and stuff, but it's been like ages since I've seen anything about it, so I don't know. I have to wait and see what's going on with that. But I would love to see our simulator continue to get better because, like, again, we're not dead, people. Well, I mean, I know it seems like I'm not there sometimes. But honestly, I'm always working on this every day. Do a little something. I'm not always there for my crowd, and I feel I have to like shut everything out sometimes to do things. I don't know why I added this. I added a thing called flip. It's a stupid macro. All it does is changes the Boolean state of something. So it does this. Kill me. Kill me for it. Let's see. We never used A style, so that's gone. I think it was an early concept. What else is coming in? Hey, STM 32H7 serial DMA. This is going to make a big difference. If you're using serial on your STM 32H7 board, you will now experience less overhead for that. It's now using DMA, which is direct memory access. It just basically means that we don't have to copy it. It goes straight in, that kind of thing. Good stuff. It's like these FSMC displays. They do direct memory access, and it's like magic. It's like magic. We now have Opula boards. Opula boards. If you're a Opula Lumen pick and place user, we're not going anywhere. We're gonna keep going. This is where 213 beta 2 cuts off right here. I typically mark, I put a tag on the bug fix where the bug fix was so that I can remember when I tagged it. So even though the real commit on 213 beta 2 is like on the added commit with all the version info and readme changes and stuff, this is where it would be in the bug fix. I don't remember if I published these um, tags. Maybe I should. I think I may, but they're kind of like they're only really useful to me. I don't know. They might be useful to someone, but I think the one thing that makes them useful is like in interfaces like this. It's like, oh, I just see that's like if I'm skimming through, like I might have kept going, told you more, which I might still, but that's where beta 2 was. And so this is a good stopping point, right? Yeah, so we fixed so many things. This other thing, yeah, this is the during the BQ micro probe, we had to disable it. Motion. It was unreliable with that. I don't know exactly why. I think what I'm seeing is that what it comes down to is like fixed time motion. Like we do slow moves in homing. You do slow moves, and then like when you hit an end stop, you actually stop hard. So that's kind of why you do slow moves. It's like so you don't skip steps, presumably, uh, and so you don't hurt anything, I guess. But also, yeah, with FT motion, think about it. Like if it's filling up a buffer with like moves, like how do you like decide where to stop filling the buffer? Like yeah, we can stop adding to the buffer when we detect an end stop hit, but now there's still that much of the buffer that's got to run. But I think what we might have is that like yeah, end stops work, but they grind like with FT motion. So I would and it may be the same thing with probes. You can't stop fast enough with probes, and that's why they don't. Theory. It's a theory. So if that's the case, maybe that might be fairly simple to fix. I just haven't dug into it because fixed time motion has been developing for a while. The stuff Ulendo gave us was really good, but it was set up for very, 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 very specific, very limited case, which was like your 3-axis one extruder, and that was it. No like dual steppers or any of that. So I had to rewrite a huge amount of it, and it was a big endeavor. And I guess they had that the Yolanda wasn't even aware that we were doing this. It was like so much work, and you know, so but now it's at this point like it got to a really like the way I ended up implementing it was pretty much the way it had to be. It was like very it practically wrote itself. So it was great. Like they were very good. And then we just found little caveats here and there, and we had to figure out how to deal with special situations, end stop type stuff, and work around like it just hadn't been considered. So went ahead and did that, and it's very nice. Now it will work with all your axes. I don't know how well it's set up for rotary stuff, but I mean it should be agnostic about that. We're still using the same types of planner blocks. It's just doing this extra step where it does all the pre-calculations of where um, the noise canceling pulses should go, and all that timing gets programmed in as it's generating them, and so it's creating essentially you know intervals. The way that it's sending the commands is interesting. I would like to see if we could maybe squish it down a little bit and have a smaller buffer instead of sending a command that's like uh, yeah, nothing happened. And here's 50 things where nothing happened. Like it would be better if it had a command which is like, yeah, wait, count down, uh, and when this counts down to 0, then continue, that kind of thing. And then it would be easier to do interrupts on stuff like that, I think, or interrupting it when we do the end stop moves and things. So yeah, I mean overall, this round here has been really good, really good. We didn't have a huge number of changes, but uh, enough and good stuff. certainly like fixes. I'm very pleased with what we got. Adding the editable homing current, actually, that was a lot of fun because I needed it for my printer, so it was really fun to make it. It's just like going back to the old days. And I got to say, right now I am like, you might think like right now, oh no, Clipper, oh bamboo, oh no, everybody's abandoning us. But I couldn't be more thrilled right now. I mean, we have so much free time now to really focus on the RepRap scene, our wooden jalopy printers, hack them together and make them work better. I am, you know, I was really depressed for a while. I was like, oh, it's the end. I don't know what's happening. We saw, you know, it was like fluctuating as far as when we were getting like for a while I was like, oh, I'm going to talk to Creality, great, we'll have great conversations. I'm in touch with their developer team, but I'm like, I can't help to bring up Western ideas and stuff. So I'm like, oh, maybe I'm alienating them. I should be careful here. Let's stick to the professional stuff. But anyway, it's like, but it really had to do with just the fact that we were all drifting in different directions. I was focusing very much on integration of all, like, so many different forks of things and things that hadn't been brought over, and trying to make them work right. And I'm still stuck on a few. Uh, and like these guys were focusing on their thing, switching over to Clipper and like their next big push. So it's like, as we were kind of like at going in our different directions, like, well, yeah, I was worrying, oh, is this the end? But it's not. It really isn't. They still, they're still selling printers with Marlin. They may not have upgraded the firmware in forever on those printers, but I mean, this is the time. This next version is going to be the time to do that. It's not like they're going to be undercutting their own sales. They'll just be putting out a nice, it's a nicer product at the same price point, which will be great. Uh, to the extent that we can provide, I mean, we're making these builds. I may just spend a day and send off a bunch of them to the vendors and just say, here, use this. I mean, they may not trust me, but they've got this. They'll have the source code, so they don't have to trust me. So I can give them these builds and say, this is it. This is a nice, much better, superior build for your machine. It got all kinds of good features people will love, and it even has first time setup and whatever. Maybe not after 2.13, but the 2.20 will certainly be have that first time setup stuff in it. And yeah, it's going to be. Uh, this is the time to really focus in on what the single boards can do. And I have no doubt, like, oh, I was also I've got the E3D tool changer, and the I think my roommate broke the screen, so I have to get a new screen. But once that's fixed uh, or replaced, um, anyway, I'm going to be focusing on putting Marlin on it with a regular old display because whatever, and seeing what the kind of tool changer experience can be with Marlin, because it's something I haven't explored and I haven't really had the time to dig into it. Now again, I'm in RepRap heaven, so I'm like, this is the time to really dig into that. So anyway, I wanted to catch you guys up, and give you some sense of where I'm at and how I'm feeling, how the project is feeling, how people in the project are feeling. I feel like it's very steady. It's very, you know, it's very mellow. Come into the Discord and hang out. We're just sharing ideas. I'm happy to help with anything. I put an offer out to my Patreons and my people who are submitting or helping out on GitHub as sponsors. I'll provide you. I'll be happy to help get your configs migrated to the new version, and I'll be happy to do a build for you. So if you're at a certain level, Patreon or sponsor, Patreon patron or GitHub sponsor, get in touch on Discord. I have a special channel set up for it. Um, so come over there and just nag me for a build, and I'll be happy to provide one. Go ahead and at me if you want. I'm fine with that. My patrons, I'm super grateful for what you, especially in these times. Like this, this has never been a a less commercial moment, so to speak. But at the same time, it's like there's never been a greater opportunity for what's coming, and I think what we can bring to, um, by integrating tighter with Octoprint. with Octoprint is great. I've also been tossing some dollars over from my Marlin project over to from my donors. Been shifting a little over to mainsail. I don't know how closely aligned they are with what we're doing, but I really want to like get more interoperable with the modern offerings of mainsail and the other things that interoperate with firmwares. Um, and I guess that just means creating protocols that can go over serial and talk to a Raspberry Pi. And I believe that we can build that. We have most boards have extra serial ports free on them, so if that's what we need, we can use that. And you'll still have your USB port free for your normal printing. Uh, but yeah, I'm really excited to see what we can do with that kind of stuff. But really, my focus is definitely going to be on Octoprint because Octoprint and Marlin are kind of like we're very much we have a very similar like spiritual background, so to speak, in terms of like coming from a similar time and coming from a similar like era when there really just wasn't anything out there in the field in terms of like a nice UI. And and like early on it was like I guess I wouldn't say early. The last decade we have been just chasing, running, trying to just trying to keep up, get everything in that needs to be got in. And surprising how quickly 10, 12 years can pass. But you know we're at a point where it's like it's really like someone can come along and create a GD32 HAL. Like I assume that like they've been working on it for a while, but it felt like overnight. And like and when they submitted it, it was like it took about a month of going back and forth to kind of like tweak little things here and there. And my final review was easy, breezy. It was like I looked at it, I was like, yes, that's right, that's right, right. It all fits in because it's very much STM32 for the most part, with variation. So what I'm also seeing is a lot more things we can start to consolidate in the HALs and make one copy of instead of having 17 different versions of the same thing. So I'm going to keep working on that and building that up. But yeah, what I guess I'm getting at is just it feels like we've really arrived at a time when, oh yeah, sure, it's you can switch to Clipper, you can switch, or have it, side by side, or even switch from one to the other, just on the whim and try them out. It's a different experience, a different user experience. You get more UI on the printer with Marlin, and you get more UI, offloaded off the printer, Wi-Fi and stuff, with Clipper. And the Wi-Fi, there's a Wi-Fi thing that you get with Marlin ESP32 add-ons that is kind of nifty. I haven't really messed with it, but I would love to, rewrite that as well and like, clean that up. It's old school. It's based on I don't even remember what it's called. E3D Adbox. So I think it's actually based on yeah, it's an E3D thing. It's the interface they created for their AdBox printer, which was a predecessor to the tool changer. It's got the same similar form factor and bed size and stuff, and but it's not a tool changer. So, but it had this cool Wi-Fi interface that they implemented, got someone to implement, and it's never really been cleaned up since then. And I'm assuming that's where it's from because I just yesterday saw on Blue Sky one of the printers, which I had never seen before and hadn't connected that it was an E3D. I was like, oh my God, okay, this is all making sense now. This is all coming together. So we actually do have a little bit of E3D, which is kind of cool. And that was like, so, we need more of that. So I'll definitely do more streaming and maybe outside of my normal Friday thing for the Prusa. I'm very excited for that. One thing I need to do is learn how to crimp because it has these new boards have these little plugs which are much better, tighter plugs, but they have shorter pins. And all my old plugs, like with these types of connectors, like the longer ones, just they don't mate up very well. I guess you can cut these down and then they mate better. So that's a possibility too. I could just cut the ends off and bare metal. But yeah, it all depends on your connectors. These are actually pretty good. The ones I have over here, old printer. I think cables I made. or cut down or whatever. They're just like wire management. It's not a thing for me. Anyway, I guess I've been a little all over the place here, but I wanted to like cover the things that have been mainly occupying my consciousness and my time, and mainly it's been these fixes, UI, making the config editor better, uh, and also I wanted to just get it into a video and get it out there because every time I go online, I'm like, people just aren't aware of this stuff. So I'll not edit this down and I'll post it soon, and you'll see it on the YouTubes. I guess there was no one here today, which is just awesome. Thank you for leaving me in peace and letting me go on and on and rant. Well, I needed this. Um, and as I check the time, it is nearing 12, so I guess I've been on for way too long. So, yeah, well, thanks for joining me. It's at the 2 hour mark. I say that's a good time to stop. Um, and anyway, Marlin and I love you. I'll see you all soon. Bye. Yes, I do want to shut down.